In today's story, we delve into a life of a woman marked by restlessness, desire for adventure, and the unforeseen consequences that follow. I can't imagine how difficult it is to believe that 5 years have flown by since we exchanged our vows. Our family has grown since then, and we now have a beautiful 4-year-old child together. My wife also has 2 preteen children from a previous marriage, making our family a lively bunch. A few months ago, we visited the mechanic shop to get the car serviced, and I noticed my wife getting a little too chatty with one of the mechanics. I ended up joining in on the conversation after realizing that he was a fellow Raiders fan, just like me. As much as I'd like to spend more time at home with my family, my job demands me to work 10-hour shifts, which my wife despises. Despite that, she has chosen to be a stay-at-home wife, and I appreciate the sacrifices she makes to keep our family running smoothly. As the sole bill payer, I have to be away frequently. During one of my absences, my wife began seeing a man we had met at the car shop. Unbeknownst to me, this continued on a daily basis for 3 weeks while I was at work. Upon returning home, I received a text from her stating that she had left and fallen in love with him, believing he was her soulmate. My wife called and said that she had been feeling increasingly bored and restless in our life together. She longed for excitement and adventure, something that had been missing from our routine for a while. Our family responsibilities and my demanding job had left her feeling unfulfilled and stagnant. The day we visited the mechanic shop, she saw an opportunity for a brief escape from the monotony of her daily life. Meeting this new person at the shop ignited a spark within her that she hadn't felt in a long time. They shared common interests, and he represented something different and thrilling. It was as if he offered her a chance to step out of her comfort zone and experience life in a way she had been craving. Over the course of a few weeks, the allure of adventure and the promise of something new grew stronger, ultimately leading her to make the impulsive decision to leave our family. While her actions have caused immense pain and turmoil, I can understand that her yearning for excitement played a significant role in the choices she made. Upon investigating further, I discovered that her mechanic lover had no place to stay, and they were living in the car that I paid for, moving from park to park. The most disheartening part of this situation is that she abandoned our 4-year-old child. She took our 2 children who are not biologically mine. She went so far as to block me on all social networks. Family members have shown me posts of her expressing how happy she is with her new lover. This has caused me immense emotional pain, making it difficult to eat, sleep, or focus on work. To make matters worse, my daughter cries every night due to the separation. Dear listeners, if you like our work, please subscribe. It motivates us to work harder to bring more such amazing chronicles. Back to the story. Although my wife left, the support from my sisters and mother in providing full-time care for my child while I work has been a lifeline during this incredibly trying time. I find myself in a state of numbness, questioning what I might have done to deserve this situation. Throughout our relationship, I always made sure to take care of my wife and our family. I loved her unconditionally, even when she was unwell, and I treated her children as my own. The one major issue she seemed to have with me was my demanding job, which left me with limited time to spend with her. Unfortunately, I am solely responsible for paying the bills, which adds an extra layer of stress to an already challenging situation. One of the most traumatic moments of this ordeal occurred last night when she unexpectedly showed up at my door with the police. Fortunately, her daughter was asleep at the time, but it was a jarring experience. She collected some of her belongings and instructed me to discard the rest, making it clear that she had no intention of returning. As I watched her leave, I couldn't help but notice her lover sitting in the passenger seat of my car, which only fueled my emotions of anger and betrayal. To make matters even more complicated, she had the audacity to send me a text message this morning, requesting gas money and asking if I could cover the car payment. She insisted that she would only meet with me in person if I provided her with those funds. I chose not to respond to her request, and now I'm left feeling completely numb and overwhelmed by the entire situation. While I understand that my demanding work schedule may have prevented us from going on extravagant dates or visiting the cinema, it's important to emphasize that we have never experienced a shortage of food, and we are fortunate to have a beautiful home. I've always made it a priority to fulfill any requests my beloved wife had, but I do wish she had communicated her concerns or issues to me earlier so I could have put forth more effort to be a better spouse and father. I used to consider myself one of the luckiest people in the world to be married to someone as stunning as her, but my perception of our relationship has drastically shifted. I received a voice message from her with tears in her eyes, in which she begged me to meet her at a gas station near our house. Despite my initial reluctance to comply with her request, I eventually gave in because I recognized that I am only human and that I do love her. Upon my arrival at the gas station, I was taken aback by what I saw. As I gazed upon her, I couldn't help but wonder if the rumors were true, rumors that suggested she might be using prohibited substances. Others had warned me about this, but I had always brushed it off as mere gossip. However, now that I was staring at her, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. My spouse, who was already of a diminutive stature, appeared even more emaciated and fragile. She used to dress impeccably, even in casual clothing, but now she appeared disheveled and unkempt in sweat-stained attire. When I encountered her, she was in the company of her new partner and our children. I gave her a sum of $200 to cover their food and gas expenses. I requested if I could take the kids with me so that they could attend school or be picked up by her family, but she adamantly refused. She claimed that I was no longer responsible for them, which was a crushing blow to my heart given that I had served as their father figure for the past 5 years. The children, who have always called me dad, hold an extremely special place in my heart and soul, as I cherish them beyond measure. Regrettably, my spouse refused to divulge whether or not the children were attending school, leading me to take matters into my own hands and contact Child Protective Services today. During our exchange, I reminded her that she has another child, to which she acknowledged, but expressed that she did not want to be a part of her life at this moment in time and suggested that I move on. She even went as far as to state that the child would be better off with me. Inquiring about her feelings toward her paramour, I asked if she loved him, and she confirmed my suspicions, but she didn't provide any further details. After this, I decided to bring up the topic of divorce, but to my dismay, she refused to discuss it, stating that she had no intention of ending our marriage. This reaction did not come as a surprise to me, given her previous behavior. Consequently, I began seeking legal advice to better understand my options and protect my interests in this complex situation. Recently, she made a demand that I pay the car note by Friday, as well as her phone bill. I declined, stating that I would not be responsible for either of those expenses. In response, she said that her partner would cover her phone bill but insisted that I still needed to pay for the car note since it was registered under my name. While I had a premonition that disagreements would arise in the future regarding these matters, I am resolved to avoid any conflicts that may arise. With a heavy heart, I said my goodbyes and departed. The most peculiar moment came when she shouted, "I love you," as I walked away, but I chose not to acknowledge it. That moment marked a significant turning point for me. As my birthday is fast approaching, I have plans to celebrate with my children by taking them out to dine at my preferred steakhouse. I extended an invitation to my spouse and her family to join us, but she declined without any hesitation. When I asked her if she was genuinely sleeping in parks, she became irate and sternly instructed me to refrain from interfering in her personal affairs. Despite the difficulties, I am grateful to everyone who provided me with valuable advice and support during this challenging time. Although I was apprehensive, I eventually decided to contact Child Protective Services to ensure the well-being of our children. I foresee that this will be a long and arduous battle that will take a significant emotional toll, a struggle that I have already mentally prepared myself for. An update: on the evening of Friday, my spouse arrived at my doorstep and demanded immediate payment for the car. Despite her forceful insistence, I firmly refused to comply. Furthermore, she attempted to initiate a conversation about the possibility of reconciliation between us, but I rebuffed her advances, informing her that I was not interested in patching things up at that particular moment and that I did not want her presence there. As a result, I politely requested that she vacate the premises. I clearly communicated to her that I did not have the necessary funds to make the car payment and therefore had no intention of paying it. Despite my repeated requests for her to leave, she obstinately refused and even brought the children inside the house with her. In desperation, I contacted the police for assistance, and upon their arrival, I explained the entire situation to them. Despite her claims that the house was her property, the police instructed her to leave, and she reluctantly complied. Before departing, she informed me that she would file for divorce on Monday, but I promptly informed her that I had already hired a lawyer to handle the matter. As she drove away, I noticed a van parked at the end of the driveway, which turned out to be her companion who had been waiting for her. Thankfully, our daughter was spending the weekend with my mother and was not present during the tumultuous events that unfolded. Her mother did not even bother to inquire about her well-being or whereabouts. I brought to the attention of the police that my children were presently residing in her vehicle and implored them to inspect it, given that she had all of her belongings and even her pet dog in the back seat. However, she blatantly lied and insisted that they were staying in a motel and that all of the items in her car were taken from the house. She engaged in a conversation with the police outside, trying to convince them of her fabricated story. The drama has become too much for me to handle. When she entered the house, her behavior was peculiar. It was nighttime, and she was wearing sunglasses. I requested that she remove them, and it appeared as if she had a black eye. I inquired about it, and she claimed that it was due to sleep deprivation. Nevertheless, she seemed to be in better shape than the last time I saw her. As for the car payment, I refused to pay it, but I'm experiencing guilt. While some individuals recommended that I report it as stolen, I'm hesitant to do so since my children are undergoing an extremely traumatic period. The principal of the school and CPS have been made aware of the situation and possess all the relevant information. I wouldn't mind taking the kids in and raising them myself. I believe that they would be better off with her family at the moment, as they are more cognizant of the circumstances. However, tonight I received a message from her, asking me to pay for my daughter's medicine since they were all exhibiting symptoms of COVID or the flu. Initially, I considered blocking her, but for some unknown reason, I couldn't bring myself to do it. Nonetheless, I decided to ignore the message. Then, my daughter called me. As I spoke with her on the phone, I couldn't help but notice the stuffy tone in her voice. Deciding to meet up in person, I suggested we meet at the local CVS, and she agreed. Wanting to do something nice, I bought some things for her, and I also bought them some food to enjoy. As we conversed, she asked if we could talk about something serious. Feeling uneasy, I declined her request. Once I arrived home, I received a text from her phone, but it was actually my son who had sent it. He asked if he could visit me next week, to which I replied that I wasn't sure and advised him to focus on his studies. The entire ordeal was emotionally draining, and I contemplated blocking her number until I could speak with my lawyer next week. I'm experiencing an overwhelming sense of guilt for failing to make the necessary payment for my automobile, yet I remain steadfast in my decision not to fulfill this obligation. After a brief hiatus, she has returned, pleading to come back home. She expressed her remorse and informed me that she has terminated her relationship with the lover. She contacted me to tell me to pick up our son, who revealed that he was exhausted from sleeping in the car and had even attempted to flee. After comforting him, I allowed him to come back home, and he is now here with me. Furthermore, my daughter expressed her desire to remain with her mother. Shortly after that conversation, I received a text message from her, apologizing and acknowledging that her previous decision was a grave mistake. I informed her that she was not welcome to come here and expressed my regret that she had been mistreated by her partner. Despite my belief that their relationship was going well, she claimed that I did not fully understand her. She confided in me that she was experiencing a nervous breakdown and struggling with mental health issues. Feeling overwhelmed, she felt the only option was to flee. Meanwhile, my wife remains homeless, and my son expressed a desire to return home while we spoke. He grew weary of living homeless and implored to return home. Both my wife and I consented. Although my daughter initially opted to stay with her mother, she ultimately changed her mind after just 2 days at home. One day after school, she fled, and we eventually located her beneath the bridge in close proximity to her residence. She's struggling with mental health problems, and I'm endeavoring to get her the assistance she needs. I am in the process of filing for divorce, and when I informed my spouse, she wept and lamented that she was saddened but still in love with the other man. Skipping ahead a few days, she phoned me in tears, detailing how the man she was seeing had become difficult. He confided in her that he was overwhelmed by the responsibilities of their relationship and required some distance. At 24 years old, he initially felt a deep bond with her but desired to prioritize his personal growth. She was distraught and collected their children and belongings, informing me that she intended to apply for the homeless program in the area. I requested that she refrain from taking the children, but she declined, expressing her desire to have them by her side. She expressed gratitude for all that I had done and then broached the topic of reconciliation. Despite her plea, I calmly informed her that it was not feasible, as she had caused me immense pain, and I couldn't bring myself to return to the past. While I had forgiven her, I was emotionally detached. I simply sought a divorce so that I could raise the children and ensure their happiness. I suggested that we could work together to achieve this without being in a relationship. After leaving the house, I received a call from her this morning. She once again expressed gratitude and said that she was tired of living, referring to the fact that everyone had hurt her. She attempted to make me feel responsible for her state of mind. I promptly contacted the authorities and informed them that she had my children and had made threats of self-harm. Her current location remains unknown. Each time I begin to feel more content and optimistic, she takes actions that drag me back into a pit of despair and agony. The constant stress is sure to be the death of me. In an update, a few days ago, she went missing, but thankfully she did not harm herself. Before disappearing, she left her twins at her doorstep, and they are now under my care. They have settled back into their daily routine of eating regularly, taking showers, and enjoying their time in the backyard like typical kids. The three of them have become quite inseparable, and our 4-year-old is happy again with her brother and sister around. Yesterday evening, my children pleaded with me to order pizza and watch a movie, and I eventually caved in, saying, "All right, let's do it." It was an incredibly joyous moment for me as I gazed around the room, observing my kids laughing and enjoying themselves. Though I am currently content, I cannot help but feel anxious about the possibility of their mother reappearing and snatching them away from me. As a result, I've been in constant communication with CPS just in case, since I have a strong intuition that she might return soon. Despite dropping them off, she has only contacted us once. She recently contacted me, informing me that she is currently with her boyfriend and that they are more in love than ever. According to her, he has been her source of inspiration to secure a job and start earning her own income so they can return home together. She also mentioned that she intends to come back for the twins. At present, they are both supporting each other's dreams. Although I am happy for her, it's just okay, cool. In addition, she apologized for threatening to harm herself, citing stress as the reason for her outburst. I decided to put an end to her madness and focus solely on myself and the kids. Towards the end of October, I've also made plans to take my children on a mini vacation to Disney World. It's something we've all been looking forward to, and I can't wait to see the excitement on their faces. I recently received a reminder from Verizon that her phone bill was due on Friday, which has left me in a bit of a predicament. I called them to inquire about breaking the contract, as not paying would inevitably end up on my credit report. Unfortunately, it appears that I will have to pay money to break the contract. It's frustrating to think that she is costing me money, but I am trying my best to handle the situation. Besides, I forgot to mention that her banned substances buddy showed up at her house the other day. I had no idea who this guy was or what he wanted, but it was a startling experience. As I was walking in the rain, I spotted a man who appeared to be looking for something. I approached him and asked what was wrong. He responded by saying that he needed to speak with my wife. Given that we are currently in the process of getting a divorce, I corrected him, stating that she was no longer my wife. Curious to know who this man was, I asked him to introduce himself. After some hesitation, he asked if he could come to the door, stating that it was urgent. I declined his request. The man went on to inform me that my wife had run up a prohibited substances tab of nearly $2,000 and had not paid him. He was now demanding his payment. I was stunned and left in shock. He stated that my wife had guaranteed that I would pay up, which was not true. I told him I couldn't pay her debts. After informing the man that I had no connection to her issue, I asked him to leave. He issued a threat, stating that if he saw my wife, it would be an immediate problem. Frustrated and worried, I attempted to contact her, but she sent me straight to voicemail. It's just great, another problem that she has brought upon me. At this point, I am even considering calling the cops to report that my wife has been giving out our address to strangers who are showing up at my doorstep. I am unsure if they can do anything about it, but it's worth a shot. In the final update, I must add that one of the twins fell sick over the weekend, which was quite stressful. She had to be rushed to the emergency room, and upon arrival, the doctors informed me that she had appendicitis and would need to have her appendix removed. In a panic, I called her mother, who took around 40 minutes to arrive. When she finally got there, she was accompanied by her boyfriend, which infuriated me, given that I had my 4-year-old and the other twin with me. I didn't need this guy around, so I told him to leave. However, he remained composed and suggested that we go somewhere to talk man to man. I refused, stating that I had nothing to say to him. Throughout the ordeal, my soon-to-be ex-wife kept telling me to stop, but she didn't even bother to rush to the back to check on our daughter. Instead, she stood there trying to console her boyfriend as I was telling him to leave. I could sense that my kids were getting increasingly upset, so I decided to take them to another section of the hospital and left them holding on to each other. The doctors informed me that my daughter's surgery would be an emergency procedure that morning, and her mother overheard. Her response was nothing short of disappointing. She asked how long it would take because her new partner had to go to work. She had become his means of transportation. I advised her to depart from Tesco and drive him to work. By that time, I had already been there for more than 2 hours, and my 13-year-old daughter was crying from stomach pain. My wife agreed to be back before our daughter's surgery but also mentioned that she would drop off her lover at work. Since then, we haven't seen her, and she never returned to the hospital. Yesterday she called to check on the surgery and requested food, but I warned her that if she showed up, I would involve the police. Additionally, I have asked her to surrender the car that I pay for and is under my name, or I will take legal action. I am completely done with my wife and utterly disgusted by her behavior. When I initially made the post, I still had a glimmer of hope that she would return to me, but now I have no feelings left for her. During our recent phone conversation, she even mentioned that I sounded increasingly harsh towards her. I am currently seeking full custody of our children, who are my top priority. Under no circumstances will I allow them to go back with her. She will have to involve the police if she wants to take them away from me. I can sense that our kids are conflicted because they still love her, understandably. The painful reality is that my loved ones yearn for the return of the person she used to be, but that person is no longer present. They are hurting and waiting for her reappearance, but the truth is that she is gone, lost to love. As difficult as it is to accept, I have come to terms with the situation and have hired a divorce lawyer. Despite her hesitancy towards signing the papers, I refuse to remain in a relationship that is no longer sustainable. Her insistence that I should understand her midlife crisis and accept it is irrelevant to me at this point. I prioritize my own happiness and well-being over her indecisiveness. It is imperative that she understands that her actions can no longer affect us. We have changed the locks on Monday, which means that she no longer has a place to call home. Additionally, we will be taking away her car and paying off her phone bill as soon as possible. It took me a while to come to terms with the fact that the reason she was able to hurt us repeatedly was that I was still holding on to the hope that the person I fell in love with would return. I now realize that the person I was waiting for never existed. This is who she was all along, and by allowing her to continue with her behavior, I was only enabling her. She needs to take responsibility for her actions and stop dragging us into her mess. The damage caused by allowing her unfettered access to me and our children has been irreparable. It is imperative that she is cut off completely. This is a scary prospect, as she has the legal right to take her children, as I never adopted them. I am ready to fight for their safety and well-being. When it comes down to it, my wife has a younger sister with whom she was incredibly close. They spoke every day, and her sister was a constant in her life when my wife was still her old self. However, her behavior has taken a toll on their relationship. Her sister called me crying, but my wife has not spoken to her since and refuses to answer any of her calls. This just goes to show how deeply her behavior has affected those closest to her. When my wife first left me, she was still talking to her sister. However, as time went on, she blocked her sister on social media as well. It was then that my wife's mom revealed that she was struggling with addiction. All they could do was pray for her, as she was unwilling to accept their help. Reports have surfaced that she and her mechanic boyfriend have been spotted around town begging for money and food. They are currently staying in a rundown motel across town, and when they can't afford that, they resort to sleeping in the car together. To add insult to injury, she also admitted to pawning her wedding rings, both of them, without a second thought. It's a heartbreaking situation, but I know that I did everything I could to help her. In a shocking revelation, my wife has blatantly informed me that she is not interested in caring for our twins. The silver lining in this situation is that her family is not in a position to take care of the children either, so there is no one fighting me for custody. A few weeks ago, my wife agreed that the twins would stay with me until she could provide a stable home for them. She even mentioned the possibility of entering a homeless program to get back on her feet. However, I am not willing to take any chances, and I will be filing for emergency custody next week. The safety and well-being of my children are my top priority, and I will do whatever it takes to ensure that they are protected. In the end, after a lengthy and emotionally draining legal battle, I was granted full custody of our children. The court recognized that their safety and well-being were my top priority, and my wife's erratic behavior and struggles with addiction made her an unfit parent at the time. During the custody proceedings, it became evident that my wife needed help to overcome her addiction and get her life back on track. The court ordered her to attend a rehabilitation program to address her substance abuse issues and provide her with the support she needed. As part of the divorce settlement, we finalized the dissolution of our marriage. While it was a painful process, it was also a necessary step to move forward and provide stability for our children. My focus remained on being the best parent I could be and ensuring that my kids had a safe and loving home. Dear listener, if you have reached this far, please land the eagle on the subscribe button. It will be a great help.